The Secretary will now read the order of the day.
Consideration of the report of the independent panel established in terms of Rule 1294Q to conduct a preliminary inquiry relating to a motion proposing an inquiry in terms of Section 89 of the Constitution of 1996.
Honorable members, on the 22nd November 2018, the House adopted rules to provide for procedures to give effect to Section 89 of the Constitution. The report of the independent panel established in terms of these rules is now before the House. And after the debate, in terms of Rule 12913, the House must resolve to proceed or not to proceed with an inquiry by an Impeachment Committee of the Assembly. Point of order.
No, thank you very much, Speaker. I'm raising on a point of order to say that despite our repeated requests as different political parties that today's voting on the Section 89 panel report that it must be conducted through a secret ballot. You opportunistically yesterday responded to us, never gave us a chance to could even subject that to review, because it is objectively and conclusively reactionary and suppressive of the democratic process and rights of members of parliament to want to say that they must vote on an open ballot on a very sensitive issue when they've got threats from their own political parties. The Constitution, the Constitutional Court, has said that we've got an obligation as members of parliament not to represent our parties, but to represent the people of South Africa without fear, without any form of intimidation. And now we are here in a situation which decisively should hold a president accountable. And you have denied us of utilizing a secret ballot, which in this basis is the only rational way to conduct this particular process. There is no any other way.
Honorable Malema.
Thank you, Speaker. I would like you to call Honorable Doris to order, because you know sitting there that you cannot cite a rule she was standing on. She was not standing under any rule. And don't do that when you are presiding over Parliament. So what she said, she was out of order, and please rule her out of order, please.
I can hardly hear, please. Honorable member. Okay, honorable members, I see you at the hand, but I will not allow you to speak at the back. I won't allow you for now to speak. Allow me, honorable members, to make this ruling. Honorable members, the Speaker is empowered to exercise her discretion in determining the voting method to be employed to decide questions before the House, where no voting method is prescribed in the rules of the Assembly. In deciding whether to have an open or secret ballot on the vote, the Speaker must be guided by the constitutional requirement to enable effective accountability while simultaneously maintain transparency and openness. For the Speaker to deviate from the principle of openness, it must be established that an open ballot is not likely to ensure effective accountability, and that circumstances exist that would most likely prevent a free expression of the will of the members of the National Assembly. Honorable members, I have considered the request for a vote by secret ballot and have communicated my decision and the reasons for my decision in this regard. It is sufficient, please lower your hand until I finish, please. It is sufficient to reiterate that a parliamentary environment is always a highly politicized space and can never be entirely free of political tensions, either between or even within parties. I do not believe that the atmosphere is so toxified or so highly charged that members of the sub-assembly would be prevented from exercising their vote on this question in accordance with their conscience using an open voting procedure. This is borne out by the various views that have been freely and publicly expressed over the last days. I further wish to reiterate that an open and transparent procedure followed by the Assembly to exercise this important decision on the Section 89 Independent Panel Report can only bring about public trust and confidence in the National Assembly and our democratic dispensation. I therefore stand by my decision to decline the request for a vote by secret. You know what? I am not going to allow you to disrupt this session. I will not. You can rest assured. Therefore, honorable members, you must have noted that in those letters I did remind you about the decisions which we took. And it is on the basis of that, honorable members, that I am requesting that we proceed with the debate on this matter. The report is before you. You have all read the report, and I am sure your parties have afforded you the opportunity to discuss the report, and therefore you should be ready to engage on the contents of the report. That is all, honorable members, I am proposing. Point of order, honorable member.
Now, I want to come to you again, Speaker, and say I agree with the submission by Honorable Mende. If you want to take 5 minutes to apply your mind again, please do so. But your decision that the voting method today will be via an open method, that decision is irrational. That decision, Speaker, does not take into account the circumstances that we find ourselves in, where members are threatened on their lives, they are threatened on their livelihoods. So please apply your mind once again. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable member. There's a hand there. I'm sorry, honorable member there. Yes, please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Khatebe, I was referring to
Is it
that
Khatebe
member
or
there.
myself?
Sorry, Honorable Pando. Honorable member. Oh, Honorable Pando, you may proceed. Honorable Khatebe now is...
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise in terms of the rules, both with respect to how we should address honorable members of the House. You allowed, Honorable Speaker, members to refer to Honorable Dlakude as Doris, which is unparliamentary in terms of the rules. Secondly, you have allowed that aspersions should be cast or can be cast against the Minister of Minerals and Energy. As far as I'm aware, there is no chairperson of the ANC in this House. There is Honorable Mandashe, who's an elected member of Parliament. And I would ask, Speaker, that given these spurious points of order by people who are afraid that their Phantom 42 will be proven to be phantom, they are now merely misleading the House and delaying a debate they know they have lost. I therefore request you to allow the House to proceed, Honourable Speaker.
Honourable members, a matter has been raised here by Honourable Pando, and I must say that I missed that. I did not hear. Maybe it was at a time when there was a problem with the system, and I will therefore study the Hansard. And once I have studied the Hansard, I will rule on the matter. On the independent panel report, and I now call on the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Somlomo obekekileyo. Somlomo obekekileyo. Usekela Mongameli, amalungi onke ombutho akhoyo apha namalungu eParlamente. Namhlanje amahlo esizwe athe ntsho kule ngxoxo mpikiswano ngomba obaluleke kakhulu kwimbali yendlu yowiso noqingqo mthetho nakwisizwe soMzantsi Afrika ngokubanzi. Siphawula ngengxelo yophando olwenziwe ligqiza elizimeleyo leenkcuba buchopho zomthetho malunga nebholo lokubiwa kwemali kwifama kaMongameli umnumzana uCyril Matamela Ramaphosa. Kokokuqala ezimbalini zalendlu ukuba sixoxe ngokususa uMongameli esihlalweni sakhe phantsi kwemigaqo yalendlu esekezelwe kwisolotya 89. Ke ngoko esikwenzayo namhlanje kuya kuma njengomzekelo kwiziphakamiso ezizayo ezinokuba lolu hlobo. Kakade ke elinyathelo lale mibutho iphikisayo libangela ukuba sibe kule ndawo alikho msulwa liqhinga loqhimgqosho abasoloko bezungula ichele. Iqela eliqulunqe esisicelo somlomo lasekwa ngabo bangqondo bugqirha ukuze liphakamise kule Parlamente izindululo zokungamthembi uMongameli kwaye licele uba uMongameli ehle esikhundleni. Kudala ke bezama amatyeli ngamatyeli ukuzisa isiphakamiso sokungamthembi uMongameli bekhokhelwa ngumbutho wamalungu amabini. Umhlekazi obekekileyo uzungula oko ezungula ichele wangena wazungula ichele kusuka ngo2019 ku2022 oko wazungula ichele. Singumbutho weANC sithe sahlala phansi sanika ingqalelo kumgaqo siseko siye sandula ke ukufunda imigaqo yalendlu yowisomthetho. Le ngxelo ayibopheleli kwinkqubo yomgaqo. Somlomo obelekileyo nantoni na esiyenzayo kule ndlu kufuneka ibe semthethweni kuba sithi abaqulunqi bomthetho asikwazi ukukekela ke sizenze unonkala sihambe ngokwemfuno zamaqela aphikisayo kuba wona efuna isiphumo esithile. Kudala sibacenga ogxa bethu into yawa ukuba ngaba nifuna ulawulo makubhekwe ebantwini evotini khona ukuze nibuye nilawule kakuhle. Nibulela kakhulu Somlomo.
I thank you, honourable members. I thank you, honourable member. The next on the floor will be the Honourable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. 11 days ago, Mr. President, you were ready to quit. Your mind was made up, the speech was written, and you had resigned yourself to resign. And this wasn't some noble sacrifice to your country. No, you were going to resign from office because the alternative was unthinkable to you and potentially fatal to your party. The alternative would mean answering questions before a committee of Parliament about the large stockpile of money that you had hidden away in your farmhouse. Money that you claim was nothing other than a Christmas Day buffalo shopping combined with some lax admin and poor bookkeeping. But let me assure you, Mr. President, not many people in this House, and even fewer people out there, believe that you have been truthful about the origin of the money, why it spent 2 months hidden in your sofa, what you'd intended to do with it, or why you tried for 2 years to cover up evidence that it ever actually even existed. Those questions all remain unanswered. And it was the prospect of having to answer them under oath that convinced you to write your resignation speech. That is how damaging the Phala Phala truth is to you personally, and clearly also to your party. And it was only when your ANC comrades reminded you about how the ANC normally deals with these inconveniences, how easily the ANC is willing to abuse its majority in this House to crush any notion of accountability, that you then decided to cancel your resignation. Satisfied that the protection of your caucus would make the questions simply go away, you decided then to step back into the ring. And of course, we've been here before, and not so long ago. We all sat in this House, debate after debate, vote after vote, and watched the ANC majority shield Jacob Zuma from half a dozen motions of no confidence and 1 impeachment vote. We had to watch an embarrassment as shameless MPs all nodded in agreement with the ridiculous firepool video. Our parliament became the laughing stock of the world as 250 grinning and heckling ANC MPs reduced this once august House into a mindless defender of the indefensible. And when Judge Zondo wrote his final report on state capture, he reserved his harshest words for the sellouts in Parliament, who so effortlessly trampled over their constitutional obligations and their oath of office in service of a corrupt president and his handlers. Never again, we were told in the wake of the Zondo report, never again would Parliament be declawed and disempowered as it was in those dark days. Not under this president who rode into town majestically on the promise of a new dawn and pledged to do things differently. And yet, here we are again. Then it was in Kandla, now it's Phala Phala. Then it was fire pools and cattle kraals, now it's couches stuffed with dollars. Then it was President Jacob Zuma, now it's President Cyril Ramaphosa. But it's exactly the same modus operandi. As long as you got the numbers in Parliament, you can make any scandal go away. And if that's how you intend to vote today, in one unified shield against accountability and oversight, just like you did in the Zuma days, then shame on you. And President Ramaphosa, if that's what you expect and demand of your caucus, after everything we've been through in the wake of state capture and the Zondo report, then you, sir, are no different to your predecessor. So I ask that every member thinks carefully about what today's vote means. We're not voting to find a president innocent or guilty. We're not weighing up evidence to reach a verdict. That will only happen later. Today is about letting due process take its course. It's about acknowledging, as the authors of the report did, that there are big questions that remain unanswered, and that it can only be solved by an inquiry undertaken by this House. And that is the test before us today. Have we learnt anything from the past, or are we prepared to once again break our Parliament in defense of a leader who doesn't want to be accountable? Our country cannot afford the turmoil that will come with the president fighting for his political life and his skin. We don't have the luxury of time, and we're in trouble. We have an electricity crisis. We have a crime crisis with our citizens under daily attack. We have an unemployment crisis where 43% of our citizens, most of them under 30, cannot find a job. For 60 million South Africans, These crises are real, and we need a president with both hands on the wheel, both eyes on the road, and a head in the game. And so, honourable members, you do have a choice today, and the world is watching your decision. So I ask every member in the House today, remember your oath of office, remember who you're meant to serve, and then vote in favour of adopting this report. Thank you.
I thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable J.S. Malema.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Mr. President, we must begin by expressing our deepest disappointment in you as an individual who has been celebrated as one of the architects of the Constitution of South Africa. On the 10th of December 1996, you sat head and shoulder with President Nelson Mandela and committed this country and yourself to abiding by the rule of law and to protect and defend the Constitution that President Mandela signed on that day. You vowed in front of the world that you will hold sacrosanct the ideals of accountability and transparency which is enshrined in the Constitution without fail. Today, 26 years after you held Nelson Mandela's hand, lifted our Constitution high into the air, you stand as the greatest enemy of constitutionalism and accountability. As a so-called architect of the Constitution, you have resolved to take Parliament of South Africa to court to avoid constitutional obligation of accountability. As a so-called crafter of our democratic dispensation, you are accused of engaging in activities that characterized a criminal underworld. As a so-called champion of accountability to masses of our people, you today avoid scrutiny and questioning like a fugitive. Mr. President, your reluctance to allow inquiry into the activities of Phala Phala farm are shocking and concerning. You are so desperate to avoid any type of investigation into the crimes that have occurred at and in relation to a Phala Phala farm that you have decided to spit in the face of the freedoms and institutions so many fought and died for. It is concerning because it means worse has happened in the farm that you do not want people of South Africa to know. Instead of using the process of the impeachment inquiry to clear your name, you have mobilized your party to fight against an attempt to discover the truth of what happened in Phala Phala farm. Mr. President, you stand accused of theft from the people of South Africa. You stand accused of violating your oath of office and of violating the Constitution. You have stashed money in mattresses and allegedly avoided paying taxes. It is now accepted fact that you did not declare millions of foreign currency kept in your sofas to the South African Reserve Bank. It is now an undeniable fact that you have engaged in paid work while occupying the office of the President of South Africa. It is an undenied fact that your answers regarding Phala Phala farm are unreliable because they change depending on the audience you speak to. It has become clear that you have no intention of taking responsibility for the crimes of Phala Phala farm because at every opportunity you blame vulnerable staff members of the crimes, staff members who can only operate under your instructions. If you are not blaming staff, you are compromising investigative institutions and casting aspersion on those who make damning findings. You have degenerated and you are clinching to power under the instruction of a faction that is desperate to control the levers of state power at the expense of the people of this country. Mr. President, I want to remind you that I warned you of surrounding yourself with yes men and women who will ill advise you in the interest of their stomach. I warned you that you should not allow factionalism to dictate the decision you take when it comes to South Africa. I warned you that the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers will not be there to defend you when we ask you to account for decisions you implement on their behalf. I warned you of how patronizing factions can be because they will never tell you the truth. Now you have decided to take your very own parliament to court because you have allowed factions to guide your decision-making instead of your integrity and conscience. You have engaged in questionable activities such as alleged laundering of money, the abduction of suspects of crime, the misuse of state resources, because the Ruperts and the Oppenheimers made you feel like you are untouchable. Today, we are touching you because you are not in the pockets of your faction or your handlers. We are touching you because we knew that white monopoly capital will use you and toss you aside. Mr. President, you should be ashamed that you have become the enemy of what so long defined your legacy. Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, we declare without fear of contradiction that you are an enemy of the Constitution of South Africa. From today, you will be treated like a real constitutional delinquent. No amount of numbers can intimidate us into silence. We have done this before, we will do it again. What if the President of South Africa is a spy? What if the spy is paid in foreign currencies? Why are the members of the ruling party not concerned to want to find the truth if their president is not in the pockets of foreign agents? What have you become so much that you are scared to hold one individual accountable in defense of our Constitution? As we sit here today, you have an opportunity to choose an individual over the Constitution of South Africa, to choose thuggerism over accountability. But all of you must know that history will judge you harshly.
Now, order. The question before the House is that the Section 89(1) inquiry be proceeded with on the basis of the independent panel report, and the matter be referred to the Impeachment Committee in terms of Rule 129I. Those in favor of the Section 89(1) inquiry being proceeded with and the matter being referred to the Impeachment Committee will vote yes. Those against it will vote no. Those who want to will abstain, and however we will record their vote as such. Voting now will commence. The doors of the chamber will remain locked until the voting is concluded. The Secretary will now proceed to call members.
Machodina, PCP.
I vote no. Thank you.
Mabuza, DD.
I vote no.
Sinodi, SL.
The answer is no.
Pando, GNW.
No.
GNM, sorry.
The vote is no. Thank you very much.
Frolic, CT.
I vote no.
Buroto, MG.
You call those who were missed by mistake to vote if they wish to do so, and we close the process. There's no option of correcting a vote.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in terms of Rule 104 of the Rules of the National Assembly. Rule 104.1 says, where no electronic voting system is in operation, a manual voting system may be used in accordance with a procedure predetermined by the Speaker and directives to be announced by the presiding officer. So your reliance on a provision that relates to electronic voting falls away. Those guidelines were published, they were agreed upon by all parties, and they were given to all of us before we arrived today. These were the rules of the game for today. There's no provision whatsoever in these guidelines that have been predetermined and approved by all parties for you to make the ruling that you have done. Unless you can point me to the relevant section in the predetermined guidelines made in terms of Rule 104, then I'm afraid what you're about to do is ultra vires. It's not protecting the process, and you're not protecting members of Parliament from potential intimidation. And I would regard that as unparliamentary.
So at this point, the voting process is closed, and I'm now waiting for the results. Thank you. Yes, those who have voted yes, 148, and those who have voted no, 214. Hold on, honorable members. Abstention 2. And therefore, the section 891 inquiry will therefore not be proceeded with. I thank you, honorable members. That concludes the business of the day, and the House